Hi, welcome everybody to week 6 of Gen Ed 53 Overview of Addiction. I want to thank everybody for their contributions to the discussion board over this past week. There's been a lot of great discussion, a lot of great posts, and in interacting with the film through a blue lens. I wanted to let also people know, and I believe you can go to their website, and I will find the link and post that. But you can go to the Odd Squad, who was the group of the police officers, the production company, and produced that video. They also have another one called Tears for April, which came after the video Through a Blue Lens, which I believe is on their website. And again, like I said, I'll put a link to their website. And just for people, if they're interested, it's a really interesting kind of follow-up to a lot of what has taken place for people in their lives. So again, thanks for those contributions. I'm going to go through this week, and I'll be marking those and again offering feedback to people. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that I will be marking the small group assignments. It's just going to take me a little bit. I'm hoping to do that over the coming weekend and have those marks up for the following week. Sorry, being away has kind of put me behind with the other class that I'm doing, and as well as with my job. So I'm going to work really hard to get all that caught up this week. I wanted to introduce this week, though. This week is week 6, and we're looking at motivational interviewing, or also known as MI. And it really, motivational interviewing is it's a communication style, or an interviewing style, or counseling style, which is goal focused and helps individuals work through and explore their ambivalence towards change that they're making. It's something that I use every day in my clinical work. Not a day goes by. Actually, today I saw 5 individual clients, and I used it with every single client, as well as I ran a trauma group this morning, and the same thing. There's many times where I used motivational interviewing to help engage clients. So a couple of key things. I'm just going to talk about some very key basic principles of MI in this video, and then throughout the week we'll be exploring that a little bit more. So there's 4 kind of process. There's this 4-legged process to MI, and that is engaging, focusing, evoking, and then planning. And so, first, when we have engaging, the whole hope with motivational interviewing is that it works to engage the individual. We really need to engage clients and individuals in treatment. It means we need to build a rapport with them. The basis of motivational interviewing, or MI, is that it's a non-judgmental approach to working with individuals. And when we look at that non-judgmental approach, it's great working with people using that, because people come in, they feel comfortable. It's very hard for people to move through any process of change if they're feeling judged, or there's further shaming that is continuing to be piled on. So the first thing that we need to do when we're looking at motivational interviewing is that we need to engage the individual. The second thing is focusing, and what we do is we focus and we help the client to focus on goals. And there's a big distinction on how goals are focused on in motivational interviewing, which is different than older styles of counseling or interviewing. And it's very easy for me to have an individual sitting in front of me, and for me to maybe make some assessments or judgments and figure out what that client's goals would be. And I say easy, I mean it's easy for all of us to make judgments based on what we see. What's difficult, the difficulty sometimes with motivational interviewing, is that it's a client-centered approach, meaning that the client is the one who determines the goals, not myself. I don't determine what an individual's goals are when they come into my office, for many reasons, but one of which we know, and with the research with MI shows, is that if a client determines their goals and picks their goals and is involved in that process and helps to focus their goals for themselves, that they're more inclined to reach those goals, and the goals mean more to them, and it shows there's more efficacy for change when a client determines their own goals. And so one of the main principles with focusing is that we help the client focus on goals that are client-centered and client-determined. The next thing is is evoking, and we need to evoke the client. Engage. Is another word to use there. So we need to engage the client, and one of the things we do in this stage is we particularly engage the client and the ambivalence that they have towards the changes that they want to make. So often, when we look at that focusing stage, so we've got engaging, we engage the client, then we focus and help the client to focus on the client-centered goals. But just because a client comes in and they can determine their goals doesn't mean that they're necessarily able to or capable or wanting to right away make that change. And so there sometimes can be ambivalence. And ambivalence is this idea that, I'd like to make change, but change is going to be really difficult. Or I'd like to make change, but my life doesn't support me to make change. And so there's this kind of sitting on the fence that happens. And so in that engagement stage, what we want to do is we want to engage the ambivalence, and we want to kind of challenge the ambivalence and find out if we can get the individual to move through those stages and move to a stage where there's less ambivalence and they're focused more on the change. And then that last one of the last processes that happens is the planning, and this is where once the client has worked through the ambivalence and they're ready to make change, now it's time to come up with a plan or the commitment or the change and the direction and how that change is going to take place. So it's not just a matter of removing or helping clients work through their ambivalence. The next thing has to happen is there has to be a plan in place as to how the change is going to occur. And that's some really basic principles to motivational interviewing. Then there's also when it comes to counseling, and it's included in motivational interviewing, which is called the 4 O's. And this is really crucial in motivational interviewing and helping people move through those the 4 processes that we talked about. But one of the main ways in which we help individuals engage them in that process and move through ambivalence is through open-ended questions. I think in the text, rather than saying, have you used drugs intravenously? I could get some information there. The client could say, yes, I have. Or I could ask the question of, can you tell me about your experience with IV or intravenous drug use? And so that second question, that open-ended question, allows the client to really expand. They can go into kind of telling of their story. I mean, they still might say, no, I have no experience with that. But it does leave it open that, especially if they have, on the first question, have you used drugs intravenously? I'm going to, if the client has, I'm going to get a yes, I have. Versus on the open-ended, question where I'm going to get a lot more detail, a lot more information. They're going to tell me about their experience with that. So that's one way to ask open-ended questions: just tell me about your experience with, or tell me about, and kind of fill in the blank there. The other thing we want statements of affirmation, and so we want to affirm what we're hearing. We want to affirm the individual. Wow, that a client says explains to me the changes that they've made or the changes that they'd like to make, or how hard a process in their life has been, and I affirm that sounds very difficult, and I make I affirm what it is they're saying to me. Part of the affirmation helps to, especially when it's on strengths, that's great, helps to build strengths, but also helps to build that rapport with the individual. It's another process in active listening. I'm hearing, and then I'm actively repeating back what I've heard and affirming the individual. And that leads into reflective listening, which, when we're working with individuals, we want to actively listen, which means we want to listen with, with a lot of our senses. We want to hear what they're saying. We want to see it, right? We want to be focused on the individual, a lot of eye contact, see what is going on with the individual, and then reflect back what we're hearing. And so we reflectively listen. So I listen and then I reflect back, maybe through paraphrasing. And lastly, we use summary statements, which help to summarize, a larger snippet of what we heard, or a larger clip of what we've heard to the individual. And again, that piece of active listening and engagement, and the client feels heard. And it's really about the client understanding that you are there, being present with them, and you are hearing that. And it is difficult at times to actively listen and participate and not drift off into thinking about what I'm going to make for dinner when I get home, and or things like that. And life is complex and busy, and so this skill of actively listening and reflecting that back, and paraphrasing and summarizing with individuals, it's a skill to be learned and developed, and when used successfully, you're fully engaged in that process with an individual, and you can feel it and they can feel it, and it's great. I mean, these are some basic principles of MI. Later on, through the week, we'll go into more. I just wanted to kind of give you that. I'm hoping to be able to later in the week, I'll talk a little bit about my own experience, a little bit more from my own experience with motivational interviewing. But it is a wonderful tool. Highly encourage people to read this chapter. Miller and Rolnick also have, the book is called Motivational Interviewing, that you can get. I believe it's in its third or fourth edition now. I've got 2 different editions. They're wonderful, and I've gone through them. And like I said, I use them on a daily basis, or I use the skill on a daily basis, but still go back to the text all the time. So that is supplemented text you could get if you ever want it. And again, the book is just called Motivational Interviewing by William Miller and Stephen Rolnick, I believe. Again, excellent resource. We're going to go through this. Enjoy your readings. I hope to see lots of people actively participate on the discussion board. Again, participate as often and as early and as often as you can. That's the best way to get the most out of this. And I'm seeing lots of people doing that, and especially through a Blue Lens, I really saw people stepping up and engaging with, I guess in the text, but also in through a Blue Lens with that medium, the media piece that we looked at there in the film. And I saw people really engaging that and kind of stepping away from, just our own thoughts, but actually what is the film saying? What is it? How is it speaking to me? And then what is the kind of broader context? And I saw people engaging in those conversations with each other, and that was wonderful. So continue that, and I hope everybody has a wonderful week. Take care.